Okay. So he is calling for a legally binding charter with minimum standards that universities are required to meet, so parents know their adult children will be safe. Bear with me 1 second, just working out some issues with the sound. Um, so he added that he says that yeah, so he wants to make a charter so that parents know that their adult children are going to be safe. And a spokesman for Universities UK said funding to support mental health services at universities will vary depending on the needs of each student population. Universities can't address these challenges alone, and the NHS must provide effective mental health care to students. And Universities UK is working closely with the NHS England to ensure that commitments in the NHS long-term plan are implemented. I mean, it's important that obviously this has been investigated, and it is great the progress that has been made and are being made in with mental health in general. But at universities, I think they definitely need to look into. I'm glad people are looking into this and making sure that universities are well equipped with the services they need, particularly counselling and well-being courses. Like my university, I went to an art university, and typically, like I think statistically, mental health issues are not considered a bit higher within like an art within the arts background universities than other universities. But that's not to say that just academically based universities don't need resources too. I think it's right they need some based on the population, but I think is if they're not um, if they're not properly equipped, they can't. They won't be able to stop issues like what happened unfortunately with Sierra. Um, so yeah, that was that story. I think it's going to be interesting to see how these universities are changing and what services they will be providing. Um, the next story is that live facial recognition surveillance must stop. So the UK police and companies must stop using live facial recognition for public surveillance. Politicians and campaigners have said. Technology allows faces captured on CCTV to be checked in real time against watch lists, often complied by the police. Privacy campaigners says it's inaccurate, intrusive, and infringes on an individual's right to privacy. But makers say it will help protect the public. It can catch people like terrorist suspects in a way that police cannot. The Home Office said it supported the police as they trial new technologies to protect the public, including facial recognition, which helps them identify and locate suspects and criminals. But a letter written by privacy campaign group Big Brother Watch has been signed by more than 18 politicians, including Joe Swinson, Diane Abbott, David Davis. 25 campaign groups, including Amnesty International and Liberty, also signed. They argued facial recognition is being adopted in the UK before it's been properly scrutinised by politicians. And they said what we are doing is putting the government to say, please, can we open this debate and have this conversation? But for goodness sake, while it's going on, there is now a surveillance crisis on our hands that needs to be stopped urgently. Like for example, the King's Cross estate has been at the centre of controversy when it was revealed its owners were using facial recognition technology without telling the public, and it emerged that they both, and it also happened that South Wales Police was taken to the High Court over its trial of the technology by a man who was caught on camera, and the court ruled it was lawful, although it's still being appealed against. So basically, live recognition works well. It kind of works like faces are captured on basic CCTVs and they're mapped by software, but they scan it against compared faces that are in like the police database. They scan the images, so they pick out images from CCTV, like obviously make it close up and scan them side to side so that they can see for possible matches. But researchers have raised concern that some systems are vulnerable to bias, as they're more likely to misidentify women and darker skinned people. Ariq Chowdhury, head of the Future Advocacy think tank, said that this was due to things like colour contrast on people of colour and systems being confused by cosmetics, while some systems have not been trained with enough diverse data sets of people from different places. So you could see a situation where you are identifying innocent individuals who are from a particular minority, which means they'll be questioned by the police even though they're innocent, and they may even have their details and pictures captured on record despite having committed no crime, he said. So I think this is it's interesting because obviously police have the right, they have a duty to serve and protect people, but should that come against someone's invasion of privacy? I mean, technology is great, using it to capture issues and highlight issues like terrorism and stuff is great, but at the same time you do have to be wary of people's privacy, especially it seems like using facial recognition is not completely accurate. If it's not going to pick up darker skinned people, if it's just going to waste police time by them arresting the wrong people, then I don't think, and then I do believe it's something that should be stopped. It's not right to, especially if they're doing it without public knowledge or public permission. I don't think, I agree with them. I do feel like they should stop unless they have like a direct reason or the technology has been improved to the point where it's going to be used accurately. Anyway, our last story before we have a quick break and go into our topic is Wiley. Why Ed Sheeran and Drake are culture vultures. So, anyone who was listening to BBC One Extra a few days ago was listening to Wiley talk about music and particularly Ed Sheeran and Drake, because he was tweeting about them, calling them culture vultures. So he spoke to the BBC One Extra presenter Dottie and expressed his feelings about Ed Sheeran. He said, "I'm mad at Ed Sheeran because he said, 'You need me, man, I don't need you.'" Quoting one of Ed's most successful songs. But Ed, the other day, mate, you had to use grime to tip your song over the edge. And he was talking about the remix of Take Me Back to London, which was produced by grime producer and DJ Sir Supro featuring Stormzy, JK and I don't know how to say that right. Sorry. And got to #1. Wiley told Dottie that Ed Sheeran shouldn't use grime in his music because we're not allowed to use you in anything that you do, claiming that the relationship between Ed and grime musicians is not mutually beneficial. He said he's clearly not a fan of Ed now, but they do have a song together, and he said he would not be listening to his music again. But Wiley featured on Ed Sheeran's #5 Collaborations EP, which was released in 2011 before Ed was a mainstream artist and featured grime artists on every song. And he said that's partly where his problem with Ed comes from. He claims that when it's time for Ed to repay the favour and feature on Wiley's own album, the multi-platinum selling artist didn't want to. He said, "Listen, we helped that guy get into the picture. I done something for him. It's on his album, isn't it? So when I want to do my own one, I was told you can't do this. Ed can't do the video. You can't use Ed, basically." He said he didn't want to stand up to his label, and he says everyone thinks I'm mad. I'm not mad. Ed Sheeran knows what I'm talking about. Wiley is one of the people who've developed and popularised the grime sound in the early 2000s. And he said that Ed's relationship with the grime scene is fake as hell, claiming that none of Ed Sheeran's fortune has been used to help grime as evidence. And he didn't stop there. He called him a culture vulture, and he says, "I'm not listening to you anymore. I've listened to you rip off Marvin Gaye. I've listened to you rip off everything." So he wasn't finished. He turned his attention to Drake as well. He said J Hus came out of jail and he brought him on stage and it looked good. And it looks cool, but it's not. And he said that he's not embracing the scene, the genre. He's just doing it for himself. He claims mandem who are not from the hood come to places and try and get involved with man from the hood. If you're good and you grew up in the suburbs and all of a sudden you become a rapper, do you know what you do? You gravitate to where you never came from. That's what. So it's interesting. I think he's raising the point of, people who aren't. I think with grime and Afrobeats and R&B and hip hop, they're reliant so much on culture, and when people who aren't necessarily from the culture turn up on the scene and I don't want to say make it popular, but integrate it with their own music, and it becomes quite successful, or not necessarily more successful, but it just becomes more mainstream. I think it's clear that obviously while he takes it personal and he finds it quite hurt, but he does raise an issue of cultural appropriation, or reliance on other people's culture for maybe inspiration, maybe not inspiration, but I think maybe it's just a sign that maybe these genres should be like protected, so that cultures aren't getting exploited or appropriated. I think it's important what he's saying. It's clear that he's obviously very hurt by it. I think it's an interesting point he raised, and it's interesting that it was a topic that was debated on the radio, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Ed Sheeran has to say and what Drake has to say. But yeah, so that's our news and entertainment for today. So we're going to get into the topic soon after the break. So yeah, this topic's on Fashion Week. It's London Fashion Week right now. I think it's the end today or tomorrow. But stay tuned. We're going to have a quick break, and then we're going to talk about Fashion Week, how it started, what's the point, and everything fashion today. So stay tuned.
For you to stay with you, I feel buy 30 acres. If not to buy 30 acres. Girl, if I lie to you, please tell the truth. Bad company, mess up good manners. Jamaica be your bubble. Tell your papa, cause you be running through my mind. Running through my mind. You for don't die. You for don't die. You be running through my mind. Running through my mind. You for don't die.
I done lost. Wine poco, good and poco.
Oh no no, say wine poco, go down poco. Wine poco, go down poco. Oh no no, say wine poco, go down poco. Jale EPQ, Joanna. I say make a shoot in my shot, oh, I go banana. Up, down, oh shit, shy. Love you, oh baby, oh Maria. Delight, Jimazo. I said I want not to fight. I got type is the tata like caro. Oh my God, look at that girl, the way she moving back. Yo, I done lost. Wine poco, go down poco. Oh no no, say wine poco, go down poco. Okay, every time why I'm in money. Hello baby, have you sent it? You don't even know what you do to me. So I go no show babula me, yeah. All I'm gonna get you is summer. I can follow you for fun. Baby, you blow my mind, I don't lie. See baby, if you want to leave, go.
What's the hidden truth or mysteries behind the supernatural? Do angels really exist today? Is healings and miracles real? Can I hear the voice of God? What's their inspirations and challenges in ministry? Can my eyes be open to see beyond the natural? Can I operate in the gifts of the Holy Spirit? Can my dreams contain messages from God? My Journey is your one-stop destination to the supernatural on Starr Radio UK. Join your host, Captain Tete, this and every Saturday from 4 p.m. on My Journey, your one-stop destination to the supernatural.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International are proud to present Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, a historic event happening on Friday and Saturday the 11th and 12th of October at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, Westminster, London. Come and take part in musical workshops and panel discussions. Experience vibrant performances from up-and-coming UK and USA independent artists, groups and choirs. Special guest artists include from the USA, Wendy Henderson Wyatt, Carolyn Traylor, Charles Woolfall and Alicia Moore. From the UK, Olga Argo, Birmingham Community Gospel Choir, James Adams, Sam Adebanjo and Joshua Kessler. Your hosts are Ibe Giankiller and Madeline Kurza from Premier Gospel. This is an event not to be missed. You can purchase your tickets from Eventbrite. For more information, visit gesummitintl.com.
Listen to Regina Abban and Lady Caroline every Monday from 5 to 6:30 p.m. on Point at Starr Radio UK, where we educate the youth and young adults on life issues.
Check me out. He tells me my energy is making him tired.
Yes!
How do you get the energy to do
I've been told that I have a lot of energy, but my goodness, I think today I have met my match, people. I have met my match, Miss Suzanne. Wow, amazing.
One of the things that the start of digging
Darkness.
the hole of darkness.
So what did that
Myself and the world will adjust. And 2019,
Forget the proverbial boardroom. Join me, Simone Frazier, on The CEO, the program that gives you the driving seat over your life. Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. only on Starr Radio.
Summit 2019 UK meets USA, an historic 2-day community event network with music industry professionals and
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, welcome back to What's Next with me, your host Ife Papula, and you're listening to Starr Radio UK, the leading Afro-Caribbean radio station in London. So we're gonna go into our topic today about Fashion Week and what it is, like when it's on, a bit of the history behind it and why it's important and all that stuff. So Fashion Week, if you don't know, it's on twice a year. It's on this week. It started on Friday from the 13th through to today, I think 18th or 17th. But so what it is, it's basically a week where like industry top designers just present their collections through a series of runway shows and presentations, and celebrities go to the shows, and buyers and people who are the creme de la creme, shall we say, of the fashion industry. So when did it start? It started in the early 1900s. So by 1918 there was like a huge increasing like demand of foreign buyers coming to Europe to view the latest styles of couture houses, and they started to hold fashion shows on fixed dates two times a year, and this formed Fashion Week. But the first organized couture I hate that word bear with me, sorry. Couture shows attempted to highly regulate guests for the purpose of maintaining this one. They wanted exclusivity. They wanted their clients to like have the privacy of looking at their clothes and their high fashion. So and also to reduce like piracy and stop people copying different designs by foreign dress manufacturers. But it became really popular during the 1910s for American department stores to host their own fashion shows and parades, which would become, and it came even more common because during World War II, European couture places had to shut down temporarily. So the first official Fashion Week began as Press Week in 1943. So this was during the World War II, and obviously American fashion media couldn't get over to Paris and where the shows went, so this was a chance for them to do it on their own, create a whole to create their own basically for them. But here in London, the London British Fashion Council was founded in 1983, and the first edition of London Fashion Week followed soon after in February 1984. So basically Fashion Week happens in like they call it the Big Four, so London, New York, Milan, Paris. So they happen twice a year, usually following one another in these three main capitals. So that's why it started. So it obviously started as a way for designers to show off their clothes, for their clients to have private viewings or to look at these clothes privately, and to obviously for their designs not to be copied as well, and just so that they could showcase what clothes and what styles are coming out, what the trends are. So in 1994, runways, for New York anyway, they built their runways, like found their home in Bryant Park, located near the Garment District, and the shows outgrew the iconic grass like tents, and they were called. So they're basically huge tents where they'd make the runway and set it up, and places where people, obviously models, could walk down. And so they outgrew them, and then they have Fashion Week and fashion shows. Like they've changed over the years and over times. Like the first couple of fashion shows, or these events that they used to do in France in the early 1900s, were very quiet shows. There wouldn't be music like there are now. They'd be just silent. Just you'd hear obviously the clothes swishing. You wouldn't really hear much. So obviously over the years it's become more popular, more high-end, more events. So so in the late 1800s and early 1900s, like these business savvy designers employed women to wear their designs around promenades surrounding racetracks, which allowed them to be noticed, emulated, and photographed and reported on by the media. And around the turn of the 20th century, many high-end fashion designers employed in-house models, or mannequins as they were called, to display their latest designs. So obviously that's what it was like now, which is still similar. In many ways, it's still similar. They still follow tradition in that way. So they do host like Fashion Week now. They will host like many, probably a lot. I think it's a lot more designers and it's a lot more fashion houses and a lot more models than it were, obviously, in the early 1900s and late 1800s. So, and then obviously over time it became more popular and they spread to the other countries. So by the time that Christian Dior debuted his groundbreaking Carole collection, aka the New Look, in 1947, fashion shows became serious and publicised events hosted in designer salons or small venues like hotels, and they replaced stone-faced models practicing signature struts, replaced with the informal model walkabouts of the past. So seated audiences were crammed into rooms with big name journalists occupying the front rows and retail buyers and potential clients. And these shows would usually last an hour, and like I said, they'd be very quiet. But I think they changed over time and like were revolutionized in the 1960s, with designers. They were making discreet and relatively solemn couture showings. They were replaced by, obviously, nowadays energetic presentations in weird locations, and designers like Mary Quaint and Andre Courrèges encouraging their models to abandon the traditional catwalk in order for embrace free-flowing movements. So yeah, you can see the big drastic change that obviously had been from the 1900s to the 1960s and even to now. Like, for example, in 2015 they started live streaming the also in 2010, my mistake, they started live streaming the shows and offering designers to showing collections in the Somerset House and to broadcast the shows, rather than probably back in the day where, or they still do now, whether they'd write an article on it. Obviously now they still do that, but they live stream, they do videos. And so why it's important is, and the way it works is that obviously a bit more about the way it works is they show the designs for spring, summer and autumn, winter, so the two major seasons. So they have a new collections for fashion press, retail buyers and others with influence in the fashion world, and then journalists will review the collection like film critics do. Film critics will, scrutinize films. That's the way fashion journalists, their role, and their editors will assess the mood, and they'll assess like how the trends are gonna go for the rest of the year, and how boutiques and big department stores, how they're gonna identify the trends to be photographed and written about, and buyers will select obviously outfits that they'll put in shops and the ones that will trend. And so there's so another reason why it's important is because while it seemed like a business convention, it's not really about it's not just about business. Like, designers rely on the show to create like a creative cycle that they might not have. It takes a long while. Proportions might be finalized after months of like messing around with colors, and the fashion journalists will use Fashion Week as it's obviously a no-brainer, a good story. So it does. I mean, it is quite important. It sets the tone for the season. It picks out like what's going to be in style, what the main stores, not just the high-end stores, but what the high streets are gonna sell, what kind of trends are in, So it is important. It is a way to showcase not just fashion but art as well, and different styles. And I think if you've seen a lot of the images, and we're going to look at some images, you'll see some of the outfits are over the top and really dramatic, and it is a way for designers to like show their creativity and show not just that, okay, yes, we can make an outfit, but change the way like outfits are made to look. Like, they can be a piece of art. I remember when I was doing art textiles, and I did art all the way through school in art textiles, and we were looking at different we were looking at a theme, and one particular theme we were looking at was architecture, and it was really interesting to see how a lot of the outfits that we saw at the time on runway shows and catwalks could actually like resembled buildings or were inspired by buildings, and it was really, really interesting. Like, you know, I think it's fashion is art. I mean, people say it a lot, but it is a way that, you know, the way different materials can be used to make something wearable, even though sometimes it doesn't look very comfortable, but it is interesting. So this year's, like I said, they had one previously last year in February, and now the second. So this week's Fashion Week will determine the styles for spring summer. So they do it in advance. So February will show autumn winter, and then this week will show spring summer of next year. So it lasts from Friday to this week, and then the New York Fashion Week will run from Friday September till Saturday the 14th, and then Milan follows, and then obviously Paris follows, and London Fashion Week actually takes place at the BFC, so the British Fashion Council. So they are something that I didn't know that I learned is that Fashion Week tickets are available to buy, but they are usually traditionally invite only and quite exclusive. That's why there's loads of members of the press and people from the fashion industry goes to, obviously from the years before, when it first started, they were simply for the press and buyers, but now you can, like, fashion fans can buy tickets, and some are public, some shows are open to the public, and that's why a lot of celebrities tend to go, and this year's people from Love Island are going, and a radio presenter, Clara Amfo, they were spotted during last year's, and obviously the different stars and actors from all over the country will come to London and Milan and Paris just to see the latest design. So Fashion Week, while it is business, it does become more like kind of like I wouldn't say a concert, but admired, like how a musician would be admired or a sports fan would be admired. If you're really, really into fashion, you'd probably pay a ticket to go see these shows just to see some of the designs that new designers are creating. Like, for example, this week Molly Goddard will return. British designer Molly Goddard will return after wowing everyone in last year with her ethereal pastel coloured autumn winter collection. And Goddard was brought into the spotlight last year with when one of her designs was worn by Killing Eve antagonist Villanelle, who was played by Jodie Comer. So, and obviously Victoria Beckham is coming back, and so those are a few names. But these shows, there are loads of designers, loads of different shows. It lasts for a few days, so there is a lot to showcase, and there is a lot of, new designers get a chance to come on the show and to come during the week and showcase what they want to do. And I'm sure it's very important for fashion students to go and observe. But we're actually going to have a look at some of the shows that have been taking place over the last few days. So bear with me just a second. Guys, remember you're listening to Starr Radio UK.
See, I know they get you again. You be like your neck was on the face. Meanwhile, go sit like they hello. If you break my heart today, me I go sharply replace. Carry another baby, give her what she waiting. Smart thing you done the vex, you done the bother Uber. Veronica, cool down, cool down. See baby, if you want to leave, go be good. Don't do shakara, don't they carry your shoulder, oh. As you see me so baby, now because of you I don't follow. See I don't let go, what you get, oh, don't you another banger, make a
So as you can see, this is the Burberry show that they did a few days ago, and they're just taking pictures. Like a lot of magazines or online publications will take pictures and make like lookbooks, which is long like albums of different pieces from different shows. So there's thousands and thousands of images from before the show, during the show, afterwards. And they also so their Twitter page has shown that they do street look, so they take pictures of what people are wearing to the fashion shows as well. So it's very much, you know, clothes are very much at the heart of London Fashion Week, obviously, but it's very visual. It's very the outfits are very striking. I think it's a chance for people to showcase, like, obviously the art of fashion and why they're into it and why it's so striking and so different. I think fashion makes statements, which is what obviously a lot of designers would want to do with their outfits, is to make a statement, show their creativity, as well as obviously wanting to sell their designs as well, and also make changes in trends as well, and bring different things back or introduce something new or a new twist on something. So I think it's very interesting to see and to know, like, obviously know like why trends are trends and why, you know, the pieces you see on the high street, how they originated from, what designs are they from, who have made them, like who are buying them as well. And I think it's important for people to know, you know, even if you're not very into fashion, I think it's important to know like why trends are trends, why like the inspiration behind a designer and why they've made this particular outfit. So we're gonna go back to the regular viewing. You're gonna see my face, which you always see every week. So yeah, I think there you have it. So if you've not seen or been to a fashion show, obviously I think a lot of people know that they have catwalks and shows, but it's not just fashion show. They'll have different events afterwards. They have London Fashion Week Festival, which take place pretty soon afterwards, and they it's more consumer rated. While Fashion Week is usually for you know, the people buying them, the people working the Fashion Week, it offers a way for consumer orientated fashion. So it's held at the Starr Studios, and it allows, you know, consumers to shop like the edited. So where you see the flamboyant or excessive like design, they'll see the consumers, so customers will see a more edited version that is wearable and more practical. But I don't know, I think it's interesting. I used to be really into fashion, and I think seeing some of these pieces and some of these designs has made me like care a bit more and just appreciated the art of fashion more. And I think, I mean, what we wear, I think it's not just, I mean, it's one of the non-verbal ways that you communicate yourself across fashion. It's quite, you know, you make a statement with the clothes you wear, and whether you're saying a lot or whether you're saying a little, your clothes like not necessarily define you, but they do show you to an extent before you've gotten to speak to someone, or someone gets to properly know you. So I think it's really interesting, and it's interesting that they do this event every year, that's been going on for so long, and it shows not just like what is going on with the fashion world. It's also a way to not just for people to know trends and to know different new designers. It's a way for people to showcase their talent as well, new designers, for people who maybe haven't been in the game for a long time to make a comeback. I think it's like it's similar to, you know, why musicians do concerts, or why footballers play in stadiums. You know, people want to see. It's the same for fashion and clothes. People want to see, you know, what they're buying. They want to see these clothes. They want to make changes, want to show and showcase their talent as well. And I think it's an interesting event, and I'd love to either be invited or to go to London Fashion Week and interview people. Who knows, maybe next year we'll do a live from Fashion Week with What's Next on Starr Radio UK. You never know. But thank you so much for watching today's show. I'm gonna just gonna acknowledge a few people. Thank you Dave West, thank you for joining the show today. Thank you Emmanuel, you've consistently been joining me live almost every week, so thank you so much. And thank you My Journey as well for joining us. But stay tuned, make sure that you are listening to Starr Radio UK. Later we're going to have Olayomi Koiki with Niger Voices. You don't want to miss that. But make sure that you're listening to Starr Radio UK. Also, if you want to be on the show, if you have something exciting, if you want me to interview you, if you have an event that you want me to do a live show from, just make sure you send me a message on Instagram or What's Next, with Instagram or Twitter, on using the name at WHATZNEX3, or you can send me an email at ife.popoola@starradiouk.com. But thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wonderful rest of your week, and an amazing weekend. Enjoy the sun or what's left of it, and we will see you next week.
If you want to get already, I'ma make